as a consumer, I see a product that has certainly helped me build, maintain, and kind of, give me that strength and all the things that I need for the moment in time that I'm in.
We see high engagement. We're seeing people continuing. After 3 years, the average active user is still using this, I want to say 2.5 times a week mean after 3 years of ownership. Like, you're continuing to use our product for a very long time.
In your report, you talk about the sort of rise of strength training in older adults, particularly in the sort of 55 plus bracket.
There's these safety features that are built in, which I think is definitely a big focus of why I think active aging customers kind of probably chose us.
Welcome to this week's episode of L.I.F.T.S, the podcast that explores new trends and deeper insights shaping the health and wellness space. We've got a great conversation today, and I'm here with my co-host, Mo. Mo, what's been happening in your world this week?
It's been a lot. We had a busy January. I think February, I'm going to be seeing you a couple of times. February's going to be really busy. And I'm actually, for me this week personally, as you know, Matthew, I've been spending my summers up here in the East End of Long Island in New York. But with family and kids, it's been really hard to commute from DC to New York and back and forth for kids' activities and all that. So we're actually moving out. So tomorrow is move out day. So what I've been doing this week is making sure that I'm not. I want if I said I was packing myself, I would be lying. So I'm just going to be honest and say I've been managing the packaging of all of our goods and all that stuff. Dealing with the move out. Definitely going to miss having summers up here and meet a lot of good friends. We'll be back, but that's my big news for the week. In addition to that, though, on my way up, I stopped through New York City and had an incredible chance to stop by the Tonal Training Studios, the Tonal Training Lab, rather. So I'm really excited to talk to our special guest on this week's episode, Troy Taylor from Tonal.
Thanks so much. It was great to see you yesterday, and good luck managing that moving process. I don't envy even that part of it.
And I'll tell you something, the part that I'm most concerned about, which you and I spoke about yesterday, is actually moving my tonal from this house to DC. So I decided that I'm not going to trust the movers because it is precious cargo. I'm going to put it in the back of my car and actually drive it down. And Troy, you're going to help me out in helping it
We'll get that relocation sorted out for you, Mo.
Get that relocation sorted out again. But Troy, I'm excited to have you on. You and I have been chatting on and off for the last couple of years. I don't know if the audience knows you or not, so I want to do a quick intro. Troy is an internationally renowned human performance leader with extensive experience in developing and leading world-class multidiscipline teams and working to connect high-level strategic insights to operational execution. Currently, Troy is the VP of Performance Innovation at Tonal. He leads a department that is established to drive evidence-based fitness and human performance thought leadership into all aspects of Tonal's curriculum. And then prior to joining Tonal, Troy was actually the high performance director at the US Ski and Snowboard. Um, I should say rather for US Ski and Snowboard. Um, the team, he was also supporting the athletes in winning more than 500 major international podiums between 2015 and 2021, and also 15 medals with 7 gold medals at the 2018 Olympic Winter Games. And over
Wow.
your career, Troy, you've worked at over 7 Olympic Games, supporting more than 500 Olympians and 50 Olympic medalists. You presented at major international conferences around the globe and mentored numerous early stage companies. So it is suffice to say that when it comes to strength and training, you might know a little bit about what you're talking about.
I hope so. After that kind of build up of a bio, then yes, I should know a thing or two about training both the elite athletes and the general population. Been doing it for a few years now, so yes. And after that, there's no time for any podcast. It's just the bio. That's it. So, and we're out.
That's a very, very impressive resume, and probably a good place to start. There's a few things that we wanted to cover. Be great to know a little about Tonal and what you guys are doing in New York. But one of the things I thought maybe we can kick off with, because it's something that is close to my heart is strength training. And we were just prior to this, we were reading the Tonal State of Strength report, and it from according to the PDF, it says you've had this research which is based on over 175,000 users, 66 billion pounds lifted across 10 million workouts. So it's one of the largest data sets of strength ever compiled. And it's interesting because years ago when you were launching, I went to CES and I met a couple of people from Tonal. I think maybe even one of your sort of early founders, and they were telling me at the time that there's a lot of information out there about strength training, but outside of elite sport, the funding to be able to provide any meaningful research to be able to use is quite difficult, because there's just not, you can't patent strength training, you can't create a strength training pill. So in general, it's still sort of fairly the information that was available at the time is quite basic, and I think now you've got podcasts which obviously are being able to fund a lot of the research, so we're getting some great information coming out now about what works and what doesn't for different reasons. But certainly be interested in hearing a little bit about the strength report that you guys have got, in terms of why, what makes this different from anything else that's been out there, and probably what sort of information are you guys narrowing down on as it relates to kind of moving this whole category forward?
Yeah. I'd say, like, number one, it's we've been gathering and building a power of the benefit, the research evidence for the power of strength training for 25, 30 years. But it takes a long time to proliferate into general population, right? It was thought, it was only for bodybuilders, and then it was only for athletes, and now, I think with the popularity of podcasts and people identifying the role of strength training, whether it's in longevity, the importance for females, just for any area activity, has sort of like proliferated, hopefully, into more of the mainstream recently. So I think that's been exciting to see, and obviously from a connected strength company and being involved in that, that's exciting to see. But it's just exciting to see for someone that's passionate about the space. I think what we see from the research side, yes, we have a unique input. Like, most of the research on actually all fitness stuff is generally short term, right? It's 12, 16-week training studies at best, generally in college age male students. Like, that's your generic research study, right? It's a semester long, and we use what's available. And so lots and lots of the research, both in strength training, but somewhat in cardio too, is kind of based around that. I think what Tonal has a unique data set is we get the size of the number of people. You said 175,000 people in that strength, and that's just a subsection. That 66 billion pounds was just over 1 year. We've been around for 6 years now. And so we have this massive data set over long-term people, so multiple years of training. And we're not just 18 to 24-year-old males, right? There's 18 to 80 plus year olds in that. It's about 45% female, 55% male. So it's close to an even split. And so you're gathering massive data across a wide range of populations of people over this longitudinal track. So then the question is, like, what can you do with it, and how's that valuable? I think the spaces that we're narrowing in mining and understanding that data is, number one is consistency, engagement, right? Not just from a product like sticky point. Yes, that's good for our business. But if people aren't utilizing our device, like, we're very much in the kind of a product where we want you to buy it and use it. We're not a club membership where we want you to buy it and never come. Like, we want you to come and use. That's very related to your stickiness. So what do we learn from that data that's shared in the strength report, like, about what is associated and what helped build consistency? How can we help our members that we sort of drive that into our programming and into our product development kind of processes? And also we can share that with the wider industry, because these are things that might be valuable for others to know. And so a couple of examples in that strength report, so specifically around consistency, is, simple things like the power of checking your stats, and the associations with that. People that follow up after every Tonal workout. Mo knows this well from his own Tonal, but you can pull up every set, every rep with Tonal 2, our new product, every video of every rep you've ever done, and it's immediately there. You can track your progress. You can see the progress you're making. Strength trains are relatively slow. We're not making 100% increases week to week or anything like that, but we get to see this graduate increase over the course of a period of time, I've made 25% increases. I think our average member makes 57% increases in strength in their first year. But that tracking of the data and that follow-up really strongly associated with consistency. Having consistent workout time and building that. So how do I build notifications? Hey, Troy, you normally work out at 8 a.m. in the morning. If I don't work out by, let's say, 8:30, let's push me a notification that gives me a little prompt and say, hey, is there something up? Did you just forget? Or the kid's sick? Or, some ways that we can build into product development. Things like, social engagement, following people and having people that follow you on the app and your social engagement. So all these things that we can tease out that these are strongly associated with better consistency. And how do we build that into the product to reinforce that and get that flywheel spinning? And how do we share that? These are other tools that people that are interested in helping people exercise more might be valuable.
Are seated machines slowing your members down? With many people spending the whole day sitting in their car, at the office, and in front of screens, then you have to ask yourself, should you really be sitting down when you're exercising? As seated machines do not promote all body movement, then a solution that encourages standing, putting the body in an upright position, will make workouts more effective. Help your members break from sedentary habits with more active training. Are you interested in creating a more dynamic workout environment? Then contact us today.
Well, Tonal's been through quite a journey. I've obviously been following the product. I've been a fan of the product, and even before I knew anyone at Tonal or too much about it, the reason I got it is because one, as I was thinking about having the second home, which I was only going to be in part of the time, I had limited space, and I just thought, okay, like let me try this here, and also out here in the Hamptons, there's actually no major gym. The only gym membership which opened up only a couple of years ago is an Equinox, which is actually about $700 a month, which is in Bridgehampton, and from East Hampton, it's about half an hour away. So just there's nothing practically available. I said, okay, so let me try the. I had no expectations of it, so I still had a TRX and kettlebells and all that, and I was just blown away by it. And I think it was that time, and I would say I was probably very early user of Tonal. The company in 2021 was valued at 1.6 billion, which a lot of companies, it was a very frothy time for the industry, especially for connected fitness. Peloton was about 50 billion, and a lot of smaller companies were in the hundreds of millions rather. And then since then in 23, the valuation was set to come down, and you don't have to respond to this, but between 550 to 600 50 million. And I would assume that if you were to go for another race, it would come down again. So from the outside perspective, you're looking at a company that was valued at over a billion, and then having to get repriced each time that you go out to the market to raise capital. At the same time, that as a consumer, I see a product that has certainly helped me build, maintain, and kind of give me that strength and all the things that I need for the moment in time that I'm in. So I see the value of the product. And for those that don't know, from a price perspective, and we talked about this when we met last night, it actually has not. It's only gone up by about $300 from when since I bought it. So I spent all in, so with installation and all that, at just under $5,000, which is still at a premium. But when you just look at the things that I just talked about, that you've got a membership that is about $60 currently, it's a $5,000 product. There is pressure coming down on valuation, which means that money to invest and spend and acquire and do all the things that you need to do from a product development standpoint, and also acquisition standpoint, is going to be limited. Where do you see Tonal going over the next couple of years? And fully understanding that you're not the CEO, but would just love to get your perspective on that.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to talk. And obviously I'm the VP of Performance Innovation, not the business strategy sort of person. So I would caveat a lot of what I say with that, but I'm happy to respond. I think number one, what the market values is so based on, yes, the value of the company, but so many extrinsic factors, like what your multiples of annual recurring revenue can literally go up and down with the wind based on what the market's feeling. Is it growth orientated versus current value orientated? And so there's a lot of external factors that you can't control with going there. And so my personal take on that is not to not to worry too much about that. Like, we need to build like the fundamentals of a sound economic business, right? Which is have, yes, like a really sticky membership that utilizes us. And we've got like, a membership, our churn is well sub 1%, closer to 0.5.
Wow.
Kind of
Which
like,
would be the best performing
it's,
in the connected fitness industry.
yeah, well, yeah. Given, I think, Peloton being the, open market, there's 1.8 these days
Yes,
ish.
just under two.
Yeah, just under 2. So you orders, not magnitude, but certainly substantially lower than that, and kind of there from there. So number one, we see that. Number two, we're not just seeing high, like low engagement, low churn, which is the business metric, but we see high engagement. We're seeing people continuing. After 3 years, the average active user is still using us, I want to say 2.5 times a week mean after 3 years of ownership. Like, you're continuing to use our product for a very long time. So that's sort of number one. Like, you've got a very sticky product that people are utilizing. Number two, we've grown every single month the company has existed, never shrunk, always growing and adding. Now, would we like to grow faster? Yeah, who wouldn't? We'd love to, in some ways, would it be nice to be, able to spend the resources that we were spending in marketing in, the height of 2021 or something like that? And no, in some ways it would be nice, but we're still growing continually. So like, the fundamentals of the business are really solid in that kind of perspective, in that you have a large membership in the hundreds of thousands. You've got a large annual recurring revenue that's not churning at a very high rate at all, and you're continuing to grow. And so what the thing for us moving forward is very much just like, how do we, I would say, sensibly play offense? How do we sensibly, and I'm saying sensible because we shouldn't go back to the days of, spending exorbitant amount of money. It's a very different financial market from a VC and access to capital and valuations for what it was in 2021. But for us, it's now, how do we go back into things? We have a great product. We've got great market fit. How do we expand within our existing home fitness market into people there? Can we make it more accessible for beginners? You were someone who's already done resistance training, and I would say our best product market fit is like the intermediate resistance trainer, someone with experience. But you could think, how do you go down? Okay, well, people that are brand new, we're great with the active aging, super safe, spotter modes, artificial intelligence, lots of things around that. How do we lean into that? You could go up on the curve and it's like, well, people like myself, like I would class myself as an advanced strength trainer. Like, how do we build features that are only available on Tonal? We just released something called drop sets. Like, it's a really unique way of doing it that's like, I would say arguably better, and we're doing research studies to prove that out, than a normal way of doing it. And so it's like, how do you expand potential opportunities up and down the stream, and potentially, like, I'm sitting in the Tonal Training Lab, experiment into new ways. So I think that's like what we are all about right now, is sensible offense about growing.
One of the things you mentioned is I think you called it active aging, and in your report you talk about the sort of rise of strength training in older adults, particularly in the sort of 55 plus bracket. A lot of the people that listen to this podcast are involved in the sort of bricks and mortar fitness business as well. And looking from your perspective, what do you think? What do you think that you guys are doing right, but maybe some of the gyms out there may not be doing to specifically cater for that demographic? Is it a case of, is it language? Is it programming? Is it just the fact that they prefer to maybe strength train at home because gyms are intimidating? What would your sort of assessment of that situation be, Troy?
Yeah. I would say it's very much, I would say this is the market leading the company. Like, initially, like when we initially launched, if you look at our marketing, and even for the first 4 or so years that we were in product, you're not seeing us trying to cater to the active aging community from an outward communication standpoint. Like, that's, I think, just the truth. But people in the 55 plus age range, as a ballpark, I class myself almost, I'm 45, but like I'm more focused on my longevity than I am on my sport performance these days. That's the truth. But we certainly saw older individuals that were choosing to utilize our product before we necessarily identified that they would be a target customer for us. And so why do I think that happened? I think number one, we're a home fitness market. Our average customer typically owns their own home. Older people are more likely to own their own home, right? We bolt to the wall, so it makes it kind of easier around there. generally cohabit and have a relatively high income. So there's some demographic kind of pieces that fit very well with our product. Number two, I think the gym intimidation piece is real. I think we're a very approachable device, right? We look like a big screen TV when we're parked away. We have sort of, aesthetic that doesn't scream home gym, I'm going to get crushed by a barbell type kind of piece. I think that's number two. And then number three, I think, is around the aspect of coaching and guidance within our platform, right? There's a full touchscreen, 20 whatever inches in front of you. You can get guidance from a person. It's not an in real life person, but it's at some point very close and with substantial coaching aspects of that. And you're going to get technology like a spotter mode. So if you ever fail, the weight just peels off, right? You don't get stuck under a barbell. You don't things. You stop on tonal, and we sense that, and we turn the weight off. And so there's these safety features that are built in, which I think is definitely a big focus of why I think active aging customers kind of probably chose us, and now things that we're leaning into. And we're actually seeing other customers. There's a chiropractic clinic, I think, out of Chicago, I want to say, that they basically they have 6 tonals in a gym, and they call it the safest gym in America, and they cater just to the active aging crowd. And that's their whole spiel. Like, it's nothing associated with us, it's just a customer. But there's interesting ways that people are finding use cases of where this could be valuable.
I'm a technologist through and through. I think most people know that. I obsess over it, think about it all the time. I think about how you could do things wherever you are, and also at any time. But at the same time, the thing that we do in fitness is a very hard thing, right? I mean, the hardest part is showing up or committing to it. Then you've got to do the thing. And in fact, maybe doing the thing is like not even, half of it. Maybe that's the 30% of it. And so much of that, we know, speaking of data, is done better with just how we work as humans, because unlike sitting down on a couch and watching the Super Bowl, which is happening next weekend, on a big screen TV, you need having that community. And even myself, and I hit a couple of PRs yesterday. I think, Troy, you saw that.
I
But
did.
even myself, that being around that community was really energizing, and it was, I might even say, my best tonal experience ever. Right. So doing the tonal
I'll
training
record
lab,
that and play it to my bosses. But yeah,
there you go. And I think because I'm using a piece of product that I'm familiar with, that I know and love, and I'm doing it with other people who I just met, some people who I knew, like yourself, an instructor that I've seen for the last couple of years on my tonal screen. And so you kind of could relate to that person. It was such a great experience. And like I said, it was my best tonal experience I've ever had. So community is really important. And when you're at home, you don't really miss it. And you and I were kind of talking through some ideas in that, the reason why gyms have been so successful, even post pandemic, where during the pandemic, I think you pulled forward a ton of demand. And now you're trying to figure out to say, well, gyms have grown. How do you view yourself playing a part of that ecosystem? Because clearly you've got a good product. Clearly it works well in a community. It has all the benefits of insights and data, which Gen Z and the modern consumer really craves and desires. How do you view the merging of those two worlds?
take a step back outside of tonal. We need people exercising anywhere, everywhere that they can, and whether that's in person, at home, in a community, or in isolation, whatever works. I am a fan of us as an industry and Tonal as a company working out how we do that, just removing barriers to exercise, and specifically to strength training in these things. I think the more that we can do, the better. I think, in Tonal's world of merging of that, I think we have lots of opportunities to expand within the home fitness market. We don't have saturation. Like, if you said complete saturation is Peloton's market share or something, that's a potential opportunity. We've got some significant growth before we get anywhere close to that to do, or even half of that. If you said strength training is half as popular as aerobic training, there's significant opportunities there. But we do find part of being in this tonal training lab is many reasons for being here. Number one, we launched a new product. You have to do a setup for press, media, influencers. You've got to do through a lot of the expenses of setting up a place to come and do that. But after we've done that, part of this is to test, what do we work in a group fitness experience? We've never done that before. Could we test and learn? Could we run some sort of proof of concepts, no product development? Can we make something like this work? And if we can, if it's like the goal of this was, can we create a great experience? Like number one, not like, can we scale this to, every other city in America or something like that? It was like, can we create a great experience? That's like objective number one. And hopefully based on your feedback, we've created a pretty great experience. And then you think, okay, well, where might it merge? There might be opportunities to do this, whether it's with ourselves, potentially with a partner, whether it's in this exact setting or that safest gym in America, or maybe there's studios where this would be an interesting concept. I don't think there's anything that's ruled in or ruled out. I think we're in the place of experimentation. We take a very software, we're a tech company, founded. What do? You put something in the market, you test and learn, you iterate as you go. And we're taking that kind of approach to a brick and mortar kind of piece. We're gathering data to see where it might go. And we're open to the possibilities of what that might look like, with no firm objectives or absolute must-haves at this point.
I've got a question about on your report, it's got skipping leg day leaves huge gains on the table. And it seems that men in particular don't seem to enjoy working out their lower body. And you kind of, I suppose I've always seen it in the gym, but I'd never really realized it was actually a thing. And you guys seem to have some interesting data about that. So there's a couple of questions. Number one, I was at an event last week called Fit Expo, and there was a young lady there telling me that glute training for guys is now a thing, and guys are now focusing on their butts because they've realized that this is an attractive part of their body, and that women look at their butt more than they do their biceps. But in terms of your research, and this report here was, I think, was from 2023, is it still the case that men don't like training? Why don't you think they like training their legs? And are you seeing a shift more recently and getting more men training their butts at all?
Yeah. While it might be a nice cliche to say that it's changed, the data from hundreds of thousands of people, I think a pretty good cross-sectional area of people, definitely the largest data set around this, would probably say it hasn't changed. So we're not seeing this dramatic increase in the amount. I think the report says, I haven't did it in a little while, but just off the top of my head, I think it's when males self-select to train legs, they only include a leg exercise once every 4 workouts, about 25% of the time. So that's just one leg exercise every 4 workouts. So it hasn't budged a bunch since then. When you program with Tonal and Tonal programs, we include it, I think, 66% of the time or something. Like roughly every other workout will have at least one leg exercise in terms of that. So that's part of the idea of you need to give people what they want, but also what they need and what the right balance of that is. A lot of people purchase our product to kind of take the cognitive load out of training. I don't want to have to think around what I do. And I know that I tend to skip leg day. So I'm going to sign up and do this program where it's going to prescribe it for me because I know it's good. I would say the data has not shifted dramatically, at least within our data set of what's doing it, of how frequently it is done. And I think all that we get to do is we get to quantify what we've all observed in the gym, which is, Monday there is International Chest Day, as is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. The squat rack is for curls, right? And it's not that bad, but certainly there's, I think when you look at en masse, the data does not lie.
Well, I must be in the minority because I like the way my butt looks and I definitely train it. But in all seriousness, just because for me, and we talked about right before this, right? Like doing German volume training, which came up in a topic we were talking about yesterday. I do that for squats if I can't think about what to do. But partly because I love to run and ride, and I've learned that by working on my legs, which I do minimum once a week, I've become a better runner. I've been injury free. It's made me stronger even on my endurance runs. And but that's interesting to see that the men don't like to train legs.
Yeah, we released this new feature a few months ago called training effect goals, and we basically categorized our entire library into one of seven different goals, but getting quite specific. So we have a goal around movement quality or functional strength, and something around the ability to. Most people identify that in our membership that at least aging gracefully, like building performance as I'm getting older is one of their primary goals. Not necessarily their ultimate goal, but definitely in their top three. And so working on leg exercises with balance as like the primary way that you will like most likely value or improve some of those skills, right? Single leg RDLs, like lunging, squat. These are very functional movements as we're getting older for fall prevention, for going up the stairs, for just performance in life in general. But they're not the exercises that people then select. So you get this like cognitive dissonance. You get this, I want to be good at these things, but I train curls and biceps or triceps. And so like our goal is to bridge that gap. You've told me these things are important, so I have the data. And so how do I give you quite a lot of, biceps, chest, whatever you like, and just enough minimal effective dose of the things that we think you need, or you have identified that you want to be good at? How do we dose them in a package that's going to be valuable for you?
Typically, we have a couple of takeaway lessons, but I wanted to kind of get in a cheeky question, which is very selfish of me to do this. But you're the strength guy, and we before the episode we were talking about Mo's German volume training, and there's different types. You were mentioning drop sets, and then there's sort of some of these eccentric loading type of training that's now become popular, and training to failure, all the different ideas that you hear every time you sort of open up Instagram. But I'm just wondering, from strength training, and I appreciate this is a very difficult question because everybody's different, males, females, old, young, and we all have specific needs. But in general, if you want to increase strength and muscle, have you found anything out of all your research that whether it's down to timing, frequency, or a style of progressive training, etc., that you found has kind of been a very effective catch-all for, again, for hitting, for building muscle and gaining strength?
Oh, yeah, all the caveats that you mentioned apply. Plus, probably this is like a 3-hour conversation. If I was going to come back, I think it's slightly different from muscle mass and strength. But if I was going to come back to some like key principles around what I think is effective, and I think the research and tonal data says the same. Like, number one, consistency, right? If you need to do this, like not necessarily like every day, but you need to do it for a long period of time. Even if that's once or twice a week, that's kind of going to be valuable. I think. So you need to consistency, number one. For hypertrophy, I would say it's proximity to failure. Not that you need to work to failure, but you need to work relatively close to failure to build muscle effectively. There's a study out of James Steele's lab, a Southampton researcher from a couple of years ago. The average person in the gym is lifting 55% of their 1RM for 10 reps, ballpark, rounding up the data. That means they're about 10 reps from failure. And so they're nowhere near close to failure. So they're not building, that's the average person in the gym in the UK in this particular thing. So you need to work, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, some reps to failure. You've got to do that. So that's for hypertrophy. For strength, I think you've got to work relatively high percentage of your 1RM. You've got to be, 80+%. That relatively, if you're not very strong, that doesn't need to be a big weight. It's not like you've got to think you've got to load up heavy mass all the time. But relatively, to build strength, you need in a high percentage. If you're doing those two, you're training consistently. And if you're training consistently in a close proximity to failure for muscle mass, I think you're in a great spot. And if you're training consistency with a high relative load, I think you're in a great spot for strength.
Well, Troy, we love to end this episode with a key takeaway each week. And I have just come out of what I called my best tonal experience ever at Tonal Training Lab. I'd love to ask you, do you have a key takeaway? You've been at the Tonal Training Lab now for a month, and you've got a couple more weeks left to go. I love the hat. I should have grabbed one on my way out yesterday.
Yeah, I like that as well. I need one.
I can send you a hat. Mo and Matthew, there is a hat in the mail.
Love it. But any key, like if you had one key takeaway from the training lab, what would it be?
If I was going to have one, an in-person tonal experience is amazing. Like, it's really quite incredible. Like, I envisaged it would be, I hoped it would be, I pitched it to my SLT that it would be, but given the words of it was the best lab, I think it really works as an in-person experience. Would be my number one ideal takeaway. My second one, just because I always want more, would be the relationship between on-camera coaches and people that have seen them. That's more than just a one-way relationship. We've seen this every day with members as they come in. It's like, I referred it in, I think, in a post, more like meeting an old mentor or someone like that. There's real relationships that build up over these, years of seeing this person work out with me, and it's only ever been one way. But when you meet in person, it's really quite, it's been special to see that connection that they have on both sides, both the coach to the member and the member to the coach. Pretty awesome to kind of see that kind of piece come together.
You and Troy could probably geek out on strength for hours. And if you have a chance, you should go and try out Tonal Training Lab. And I have a feeling that if you don't get a chance to go to the one in New York, that I have an inkling that there will be some other ones coming up soon. But what do you think, Matthew? Any key takeaways from this episode?
As I said, I think we could do like an hour and a half episode just specifically on strength training, because I got a whole load of questions and obviously too much to cover today. But I think, certainly some of the information that you've shared is really important. I'd recommend checking out the PDF that you guys share. I think we'll put a link into it in the comments, so everybody can download that and have a look at it. And I'd love to come over to New York and check out your studio when I'm over that part of the world.
We would love to have you.
Mo, any takeaways from you?
Well, I think it's really kind of understanding how can we get this great product, and this is a big challenge, to fit well within the gym experience. And Matthew, you and I have talked a lot about this, is how do you kind of create that omnichannel experience? What ecosystem is going to win? I mean, Troy, you mentioned if you could be, one part of one fraction of Peloton, you'd be doing wonderful things. But Peloton has built somewhat of an ecosystem, but even that ecosystem is not compatible with what's happening at gyms today. Is there an opportunity here where you could be a bolt-on and be part of a larger platform? I think that's the unknown that we are all still trying to solve, but we are working towards it. I mean, things like the Tonal Training Lab are steps in that right direction. So I'm excited to see what is going to come, because I do think that these two worlds were independently developing for the last 5 years in their own kind of parallel pathways, and now they have to converge because because of need, and also because it is what is best for the consumer as well.
Well, that's it for today's episode of L.I.F.T.S. Thanks very much, Troy, for joining us. Looking forward to that cap. It does. I think it will really suit me. If you enjoyed this discussion, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share it with someone that you think will find valuable. Thank you very much for listening.